I do not know if and when the FBI has interviewed this man. The FBI is under no obligation to come to us with any information concerning anyone. They have cooperated with us in the past 100%.
Could Oswald have done it?
Based on the testimony of the experts and their analysis of films of the assassination, the Commission has concluded that a rifleman of Lee Harvey Oswald's capabilities could have fired the shots from the rifle used in the assassination within the elapsed time of the shooting.
The Mannlicher Carcano found after the assassination in the book depository is a single-action breech-loading rifle. A spent cartridge has to be ejected, a fresh round loaded, and the rifle re-aimed. In the hands of an expert, it is impossible to aim and fire at a moving target the 3 shots in the 5.7 seconds the Commission claimed had elapsed. But was Oswald a marksman?
The Commission has concluded further that Oswald possessed the capability with a rifle which enabled him to commit the assassination.
That's certainly not the view of Nelson Delgado, with whom Oswald had served in the Marines.
As far as I knew, Oswald was a very poor shot.
So Oswald was a lousy shot, and the weapon it was claimed he had used was hardly ideal for an assassin. It was a cheap mail-order job, an old Italian design that had the reputation of being a humanitarian weapon, since it was so unlikely to harm anyone. The Commission were hell-bent on sticking to Oswald, and nothing but nothing could shake them. Not even perhaps the most ludicrous theory of all. How did Oswald achieve so much with just 3 bullets?
There is very persuasive evidence from the experts to indicate that the same bullet which pierced the president's throat also caused Governor Connolly's wounds.
This is very hard to believe when one sees the condition of a bullet that has only caused a wrist wound. However, this bullet, Commission Exhibit 399, known as the magic bullet, was magical enough to remain almost intact after all its work and present itself lying loose on Governor Connolly's stretcher at Parkland's Memorial Hospital. But let's take a closer look at what this bullet was supposed to have done. Oswald, say the Commission, was on the 6th floor of the depository building. He fired a shot which, according to them, went through the back of Kennedy's neck, exited from his throat, and then changed course to find its way into the right side of Governor Connolly's back, exit below his right nipple, hit his right wrist, and end up embedded in his left thigh. Improbable? Impossible? But if you can stretch your mind to believe that, there's one other factor to be taken into account. Governor Connolly was hit 2 seconds after the president was hit in the throat. In the Zapruder film, we see Kennedy grasp at his throat. At this time, the governor is still waving to the crowds. In real time, it's 2 seconds later when he's hit, and his reactions are obvious. But we don't even have to believe our own eyes. Governor Connolly himself posed the Commission the unanswerable question.
Unquestionably, when the first shot was fired, I recognized it as a shot. I thought of nothing else but that it was a rifle shot. I turned to my right. I had time to think. I had time to react. And I turned to my right to look back over my right shoulder to see if I could see anything unusual, and particularly to see if I could catch him out of the corner of my eye. Because I immediately thought...
Him, you mean
the president.
The president.
Because I immediately thought of an assassination attempt the moment I heard the shot. I didn't see anything except just the general blur of waving, of people moving, but nothing really unusual. I did not see the president out of the corner of my eye, and I was in the process of turning back to look over my left shoulder, and had about come to the point where I was looking straight forward again, when I felt the impact of the bullet that hit me. But I know I wasn't hit with the first shot. And then I was hit. And I know I wasn't hit with the third shot. That much I'm absolutely sure of.
And there's one further puzzle surrounding Connolly's injuries and that magic bullet. After it had been officially announced that the president was dead, the doctors at Parkland's Memorial Hospital in Dallas held a press conference. During the conference, they were asked about Connolly's condition.
They were asking now if a bullet was found in his leg.
The bullet is in the leg. It hasn't been removed. This is a very insignificant factor, though. It will be removed. Left thigh.
Quite clearly, they had yet to operate on the governor, and a bullet was still lodged in his thigh. That bullet has never been accounted for. What were the injuries to the president?
President Kennedy was first struck by a bullet which entered at the back of his neck and exited through the lower front portion of his neck, causing a wound which would not necessarily have been lethal. The president was struck a second time by a bullet which entered the right rear portion of his head, causing a massive and fatal wound.
Those wounds, that tied in so neatly with the single rear assassin theory, were supposed to be the unanimous findings of the Dallas doctors and the official autopsy in Washington. Unfortunately, the commission ignored or overlooked that very first press conference held by the Dallas doctors. This is a transcript of their descriptions of the injuries to the president. Dr. Malcolm Perry was the attending surgeon. He told the press,
The neck wound, as visible on the patient, revealed a bullet hole almost in the midline.
Question, would you demonstrate?
In the lower portion of the neck, in front.
Question, below the Adam's apple?
Below the Adam's apple.
Question, which way was the bullet coming on the neck wound? At him?
At him.
Later in the press conference, Perry reiterated that point.
The wound appeared to be an entrance wound in the front of the throat. Yes, that is correct.
After that press conference, there was a violent row between the Secret Service men and Texas state officials about who had jurisdiction over the president's body. It ended with the body being forcibly removed and taken in a massive funeral casket to Love Field Airport. On board Air Force One, Jackie Kennedy refused to leave her husband's coffin, and it was only when Lyndon Johnson announced that he was going to be sworn in as the new president that she was persuaded to go to the makeshift ceremony. The body was left unattended for 20 minutes, and all evidence points to a gruesome and clumsy attempt at that time to alter the body, to make the wounds consistent with the rear assassin theory. In a moment, I'll describe what was done, but first, the casket we all watched being unloaded in Washington no longer contained the body of the president. His body had been transferred to a standard-issue military grey metal coffin. It was driven at high speed to the rear of the hospital and taken to the mortuary.
I helped put President Kennedy's body in a bronze ceremonial casket on November 22nd, 1963, at Parkland Memorial Hospital.
That evening at approximately 8 o'clock, the body arrived in a gray metal casket.
It was a light bronze, or a dark bronze coffin with lighter bronze handles on it. It was a very nice, expensive type casket.
It was a very plain casket, and when I say plain, I mean it was pinkish gray. It had pink and gray on the sides. There was nothing fancy about it as far as being bronze. It wasn't bronze.
I would venture to say it weighed close to 1,000 pounds.
Oh, maybe 60 pounds.
They had him wrapped in sheets at the time. And when we picked him up to put him in there, he was still tripping quite a bit of blood from the wound in the back of his head, whatever caused it. We put some more sheets in a mattress liner, plastic mattress liner inside the coffin to soak up this blood that was dripping, We went ahead and put him in the coffin and closed the lid.
We opened the whole casket up, and there was a gray body bag, zipped shut. We unzipped the body bag, and the president's body was lifted out of the body bag. He's completely naked except for a sheet wrapped around his head, a bloody sheet.
The autopsy was led by a naval pathologist, Commander James Humes. He and the others present were not qualified forensic pathologists and were judged by the Congressional Assassinations Committee to have had insufficient training and experience to evaluate a death from gunshot wounds. We've already heard their findings. According to them, the president had been hit twice from behind. One bullet had entered the back of his neck and exited from his throat. The other had blown in the right rear of his skull. But remember what the Dallas doctors said at the press conference. First, the throat wound. A front entry in their view, but now, according to the autopsy in Washington, an exit wound. The shot in the back, 5 3/4 inches below the neckline in Dallas, now placed in the back of the neck in Washington to tie in with the throat wound. But most crucial of all, the gunshot to the right front temple that was undoubtedly the fatal shot. In Dallas, the exit wound had been described as egg-shaped, but Humes and his colleagues now chose to describe it as looking like this.